Hey, if you're an actor at the start of your career, or if you're an actor who hasn't started at all, no judgment. But I do want you to know that it has never been a better time to get started with Backstage. Just go to backstage.com/subscribe and enter the code word envelope at checkout for a 30-day free trial. That's 30 whole days. You can browse through thousands of casting notices from thousands of filmmakers, producers, casting directors, all looking for talent just like you. Make a profile, upload a headshot, find out what kind of projects you want to be a part of. Backstage is where you book that very first role. It's also where you book that second role, and then that third role, and then you keep booking roles all the way up until you win that Oscar. And then you can come join me here on In the Envelope. We love a full circle moment here at Backstage. But first, you gotta subscribe, and again, that's 30 days free if you use the code word envelope at checkout. ENVELOPE envelope, 30 days free. Get those roles. And I'll see you back here when I interview you when you win an Oscar. Cannot wait. Welcome to In the Envelope, a podcast from Backstage, the one-stop shop for actors and creators both above and below the line. I am your host, Vinnie Mancuso, Backstage senior editor and professional entertainment obsessive. I'll be your guide through every corner of the creative industry with the help of some of your favorite stars. Here you'll find intimate, in-depth talks with today's most award-worthy names in film, television, and theater. Along the way, we'll get advice on living your best creative life, relatable stories of the highest highs and lowest lows, and maybe, just maybe, a rare peek in the envelope.
As far as being different, now I'm the same dreamer kid who saw Baloo the bear in Jungle Book and thought, I don't know what this is, but I want to do that. But when I saw the lion for the first time in The Wiz, and I said, I don't know what that is, but whatever that is, I want to do that. I want to be on that stage and listen to those people applaud. The first time I heard applause, I was like, that's been my drug since I was 5 years old.
Welcome to another episode of In the Envelope, the Actors Podcast. I am your host, Backstage senior editor, Vinnie Mancuso, and joining us today is one of Broadway's biggest personalities, the great, the wonderful James Monroe Iglehart. Now, many of you might know James from the role that won him his Tony, the Genie, in Aladdin on Broadway, or his run as Thomas Jefferson in Hamilton. But what he's doing right now is honestly one of the most impressive things I've ever seen from an actor, stage, screen, or otherwise. Let me break this down quickly. He is currently starring in the musical A Wonderful World as jazz legend Louis Armstrong, which first opened in New Orleans on October 6th and Chicago on October 13th. And then James, starting on October 31st, will be playing King Arthur in Spamalot on Broadway, a role he recently played at the Kennedy Center. So he has pretty much been hopping on planes, traveling from state to state to do back-to-back lead musical performances, while essentially preparing for both at the same time. Wild. Truly, truly wild. And it was an absolute delight getting to talk to James about all of it, what it takes to pull something like that off, both personally and as an actor, and most importantly, why he's not taking any of this for granted. Let's get right into it. Here is James Monroe Iglehart. James, thank you so much for being here. How's it going?
Going very well. Thanks, Vinny. How are you doing?
Good. I'm so excited to talk to you. I'm so excited to meet you. I saw you in Aladdin in 2014. I want to say.
That's right.
That's
right.
I still cite that as one of the craziest things I've ever seen an actor did, just from like a pure stamina, from a pure just. So all this time later, I'm so excited to talk to you.
Thank you. It's literally one of my favorite moments of my entire, not just career, but entire life. I had so much fun playing that role. He was Genie's a childhood hero of mine. So being able to step into those shoes, I still don't really have the words for it.
Well, I mean, that's impressive, but I am really just trying to wrap my head around the last few months you've been having. It's kind of hard to describe. You are in a wonderful world.
Yes.
Playing Louis Armstrong.
Yes, I am.
That recently premiered in New Orleans and also recently premiered in Chicago.
We're in Chicago right now. Yes.
Amazing. And you are also seemingly simultaneously in Spamalot, returning to Broadway starting October 31st is previews, I believe.
That is very true.
So you are country hopping, or I should say state hopping.
State hopping, yes.
Show hopping.
Yes.
Tell me how this came about. Let's start from the beginning, I suppose.
So I was working on, I've been a part of Louis Armstrong for a little bit. What happened was, quick story, during the pandemic, I was watching, as we all were, Netflix, just trying to find how many shows we could binge. And my wife and I have been wanting to binge Ken Burns Jazz for a long time.
Yes.
And, it's one of those shows where you go, I need to watch that, but you just never do. And finally, we're like, we ain't got nothing better to do. Let's do it now. So the first 3 episodes are all about Louis Armstrong because, he's one of the, main pillars of jazz. And I got so excited and thought that was really, really cool. And so, long story short, I called my reps and said, anybody doing a show about Louis Armstrong? If not, we should make one. Someone was. I said, contact me. We contacted me, and I became a part of it. So we've been working on this show, trying to get it to where it is now. At the same time, I started doing some really cool things at the Kennedy Center and got to do, the 50th anniversary of Broadway. Also got Guys and Dolls. And their producer, Jeffrey Finn, calls me and says, hey, we're doing Spamalot. Would you like to play the king? And I was like, of course I would, especially because I finally get to act with my friends, Rob McClure, Alex Brightman, and Nick Walker. I was like, great, I'm doing that. So that was supposed to be just that, just Spamalot at the Kennedy Center, nothing else. And I was going to jump into Louis, and I had some other projects I was going to do. Then Louis got already signed to do New Orleans and Chicago, pre-Broadway run. That's where we're going. And then I get a call from my agent and said, Spamalot's going to Broadway, and they want you. And I was like, that's impossible. I can't do it. Why won't they just wait? Let's just do it 2 years from now. Maybe wait. I don't know. And they were like, no, it has to come in this year. They do it this year. And they want you. And I was like, if by the grace of God, you can make this happen, we'll figure. I doubt they'll say yes, but you never know. Sure enough, the companies got together and worked out a crazy schedule where I have no days off for the rest of my life to be able to figure out how to do this. So what happens is, I'm in Chicago, I do the shows, I fly out, I go to rehearsal, I rehearse for a couple days, then I get back on the plane, fly back out to Chicago, do my show, and I'm back and forth. And so on the last day, the fun part is, this is common knowledge, on the last day of Louis Armstrong here, which is the 29th, I'll be flying out the 29th. And then Monday on the 30th, I get my put in, I'm in the show, and we open on the 31st.
That's wild. That's
funny.
Wild. I'm just realizing we very recently had Alex Brightman on the show.
Yes.
And he's telling me that he auditioned for The Shark is Broken while he was doing Spamalot.
Yes. We were talking, I remember that day, our dressing room was right next to each other. I said, what are you doing? He said, man, I'm getting ready for this callback. I'm doing The Shark is Broken. I said, oh my God, that's so cool. So he goes early in the morning and then comes back that night to the show. And he was like, I think I did a good job. And we found out a couple of days later he got it. We were like, there you go.
Well, I don't know if they put it in the water during this Spamalot. You guys are all over the country. There's nothing but energy. So I am curious, before we talk about the process itself, I'm curious, when you're in a time like this, that is just pure booked, pure busy, no day, like you said, no days off. How often do you think about, when it wasn't like that, when at the very beginning?
Oh, often. I think about it to remind myself how blessed I am right now. So I never want to get too big for my britches and never want to think, yeah, that's right, I deserve this. Yeah, I'm booked all the time. I want to remember the times and appreciate this time, because there were moments where I wasn't booked at all and no one knew who I was. And everybody mispronounced my name and called me Iglehart, even though there's no N in my name. And I would have to correct them. And I remember correcting a lady and saying, no, it's Iglehart. And she looked me dead in my face and said, are you sure? How you going to ask me, am I sure about how to say my own name? So, I definitely do think about those days quite often to remind myself of how awesome this time is, and to not take it for granted that I get to do 2 fabulous shows, at the same time. and that people are willing to, take the risk of allowing me to do this. Because that's what theater is. Professional theater is a risk. It's fun, but it is a risk. And so some producers have to, put their money where their mouth is. He says, yeah, this is the guy we want to back. So I definitely think about that a lot.
Do you remember what you consider as your sort of breakout moment, or the moment where it felt like you were on the way to a career in the theater and not just,
Yeah,
doing theater?
I had a couple of breakout moments. I had a breakout moment in the Bay Area where I was born and raised. I'm born in Hayward, California.
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing shows. And my breakout moment in the Bay Area was we were doing Grease at American Musical Theater in San Jose. And I played Teen Angel. And I don't want to get too much into it, but I'll say that, let's just say that a couple of the leads, guys that were not from the Bay Area, men, I say men specifically, that were from, New York. And they weren't exactly the nicest guys in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so they just assumed they were just going to come to my town and just wreck shop and leave. But what happened was my Teen Angel, my one scene was the only thing that the papers were talking about. And I remember the guy coming into my dressing room, just very like, oh, I see everyone talking about you. And I said, well, sometimes people are talented and sometimes people are talented and nice. I'll never forget that. And that was my breakout role there. My breakout role in New York, honestly, the one that got people to notice me was Memphis, the musical. I played Bobby, and it wasn't like people were like, hey, we want that guy. But it was that people went, whoa, who is that? He's doing something cool. We should keep an eye on him. And from that is what got me noticed from Aladdin. So it was Memphis, the musical, of me having my, the featured role I had in that let New York know, okay, this guy is someone who I think he's going to do something cool. So we should watch for him. And then, of course, once Aladdin happened, all of a sudden people, like I always say, they say, what's the difference between the Aladdin and before Aladdin, after Aladdin? And I always say, people pronounce my name correctly.
It's little
once
things.
Aladdin happened. Well, it's the little thing. Once Aladdin happened, I was like, so I would say, my Bay Area breakout and my New York breakout were Grease, and then of course Memphis.
Is there something from those early breakout performances that you learned from doing them that is still kind of helpful for you today?
Yeah, to be fearless, to literally just go out there and balls to the wall, just go, okay, just try something nuts and see what happens. If it works, it works. If you crash and burn, at least that doesn't work. But go for it and go as big, go big or go home. And also, I think the other thing that got me was both of those roles let me know, as long as you're having fun, the audience will have fun with you. If you look like you're dying, they're gonna feel like, oh my gosh, he's in trouble. Mm-hmm. But if you look like you're having the time of your life, no matter what you're doing, whether it's a depressing moment or a funny moment or the audience is like, yeah, if your energy's there, they're with you. And I learned that with both Teen Angel and with Bobby in Memphis, and also definitely with Jeannie. Just go for it. And the audience will get so wrapped up in you having a good time, they can't help themselves.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I think I've never really thought of it put like that, because I've seen live performances where the performance is quote unquote good, but the actor really looks like they're like going through it, and that really is is palpable. The audience feels that.
Yeah, and like that's what I'm saying. It's like one of those things, like it could be funny and people just assume, oh my God, they're having a great time. But if you're doing something dramatic, people just assume, oh my God, what a horrible time they're having, and you don't realize, yes, they are going through it, but they are enjoying every second of it. You have to realize we're actors, and you can't give us scenery to chew, because we will chew it. And if you give us some deep, meaty scene, I mean, we're having a ball. And if we're having a ball, the audience is just on the edge of their seat, like watching, like, they can't, they have, and they're leave talking about it. Because right now, I'm doing Louis Armstrong, and we have some intense scenes,
mm-hmm.
and I'm having the time of my life playing these moments.
I'm trying to think of the best word for it. The driving force for doing this changed at all for you? Like I have to, or I guess I shouldn't assume, but like, has the goals and the reasons behind doing this changed at all?
A little bit, a little bit. Yeah. When I first started doing this, I just wanted to be cool, man. I think
Don't we
for
all?
me,
Isn't that the goal for everyone?
but that's the thing. I think, I try not to, I never want to put words in people's mouths, but I always go, if you find a group of actors, you find either the most egomaniac, conceited people in the world, or you find the most insecure people in the world who literally want somebody just to say, I like you. We really just want to be liked. Please clap for me. Please tell me I'm good. You know what I mean? And I think when I first started, I just wanted, my friends to think I was cool. My friends to tell me I was good. I needed outside help to say, tell me I'm as good as I think I am, because I'm insecure and I need people to tell me that. So you first do it. And also, I'm not a football player. I'm not a basketball player. So how do you get the girls? Well, if I'm up on that stage, well, yeah, they'll see me and I'll sing. And the girls will go, I want to date him because he's singing. So, hey, there you go. So insecurity plus wanting to get girls creates entertainer. So, and then also there's that third factor of all the people telling you can't do it. Mm-hmm. You can't do it. You'll never make it. So you got to show them. So you got to fix your own insecurity, want to get the girls and show those people. And then you get to a point where you've got the girl. I've got a beautiful wife of 21 years and I'm not insecure anymore. I mean, of course we all have our own insecurities, but I can't really say, oh God, I don't know if I could do this because I can. And all those people who told you can't, you don't talk to them anymore. So what do you do this for? And I had to find a different reason. And now I realize I just love to entertain. I love to tell good stories. And I love that my superpower is taking an audience away from the regular world for just a little while. There's so many things happening in the world that are hard to see, hard to watch, hard to stomach. And if I can take these folks away from that for just a little bit, and entertain them with something ultra silly as Spamalot, or something as historically relevant as Louis Armstrong, then I've done my job. If you can pay your hard-earned money and just get away from the crazies of the world for a little bit and be entertained and taken to a different place that doesn't make you think about all the crazy stuff happening, then I've done my job. And so that's my goal now. My goal now is to tell a good story and give our world just a little bit of escapism for just a bit before they go back into the regular craziness that is our life.
That is reality, I suppose.
Yeah.
I do want to talk a lot actually about how you do what you do, the process of it. And I am very interested in just sort of, how that evolves over a career. Do you have what you consider a process? Do you have any things set in stone, or does that malleable question?
I think it changes. I think it's a malleable question. It changes from project to project. Certain things, I do my research. I love research. Research is fun because I'm that guy who likes to sit down and talk nerd talk. It's like we could talk about, professional wrestling for hours. We could talk about, musical theater for hours. We could talk about Star Trek for hours. We could talk about Star Wars and we can get into an argument about which ship is better, the Millennium Falcon or the Enterprise. We can do that for days. So my process with my characters are trying to study about them, whether it's Jeannie or whether it's Thomas Jefferson. And then if you have a character that you have to create, it's about the process changes of, okay, so what does the page say that the scriptwriter has written? And do I know this character? And if I don't know this character, how can I get to know this character? What is there similarities between us? If there's not, I have to find something that I enjoy or be empathetic by this character so I can play it. So it all depends if I'm playing somebody that's already out there or someone that's brand new. So I think that's my process for someone that's out there or new or a character that's already created. It's about the research, as much research as I possibly can do. And then with a new character, it's what has the writer written and find that within myself and see if I feel comfortable doing all that to get to the end of where we need to be.
So where was the start there for Louis Armstrong? So that's there's a lot of text there.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of things you can. So what was your entry point?
My entry point actually was first was Ken Burns, going back and watching that again. And then literally before I looked up, just Louis Armstrong on Google and found out that he wrote his own autobiography, 2 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And
can't get more into his head than that.
I quickly went and bought them. And then the more I studied the man, the more I realized that he was an avid writer, and he wrote letters all the time. And he taped things. Like, he has this reel to reel in his house, and he would tape hours, 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 hours of stuff. And so I found out that there was a museum in Corona, Queens, and those tapes are there. They used to be at King's College, and now they're there. And if you're a member, you can listen to those tapes. And then I went on YouTube and just listened to every interview I could. I watched all the documentaries, whether it be A&E or the one on Apple. I tried to do as much as I possibly could. And then I had some fun moments where I got the privilege to actually talk to Wynton Marsalis. And he is like a walking encyclopedia of jazz. And to talk to him about Louis and to find out stuff. So when it came to Louis, it was reading his books, listening to him talk, listening to his thoughts, reading his letters, because his letters are all in a book now. A lot of his letters are in a book now. And reading those letters and trying to find as much about him as I could, the essence of the man. And that's what I did with him, just as much research, because there's a lot, because he's such a historical figure. People have written books on him. And I also read some of the books that other people wrote. But the fun part for me, because of the way the role was, I really want to know what he thought. There's always writers that write about the person, and that's great. You're kind of getting their opinion of what's going on. And I really wanted to know what Louis thought and what Louis felt about this, about the world and his career.
So when you're absorbing all of that, that's a ton of stuff to just sort of plug in. Where does that go when it comes time to do the show? Like when all of that is in you, and then you have to actually do the choreography and the dialogue, the blocking. Where does all that mix together?
Well, the crazy thing is, because we have a new show, there are certain times where I would kind of plead my case to the creatives and say, I don't know if he would say this. And they're like, why? I said, well, because in this book, he said this happened, and I don't know if he would say it like that. And also he had a way of talking, and, this is the lingo he would use. And so I do that. But when it comes time to actually do the show, yes, you have to put that information aside and kind of let that be your base, your foundation of what you stand on, and kind of go with what the script is saying, but let that base and all the information kind of influence all the way you play it, the way you say it, the way you do it. So that's what I do. I let that information influence how I react to my fellow characters, my fellow actors on stage. That's how I use it. So it's still in the back of my mind, how Louis would say something, or what he would do, or how he would react to something, just from what I've read. So that helps me, that informs me when I'm on stage with the folks.
And you mentioned this is a new show. This is something that is, there's not a lot of, things from the past to inform what you're doing now. How much are you finding in these performances that's, sort of surprising you in a way that you're like, oh, this is part of the character or part of this role that I would not have known about until I did it?
Well, because some things actually, because you're playing someone, some things come from your own life. I didn't realize there's similarities between, Louis Armstrong and I, besides just being African-American entertainers, being married a long time, just going through what he went through in his, emotional growth. As I read his books, I was like, oh my God, I went through that. So I can kind of pull from my own. And because I'm not directly him, I had to pull from my own emotional moments to be able to get to a place I need to get to in the scene. There's many emotional moments, because Louis was married 4 times, and so that means 3 divorces. You know what I mean? So to go through that, I had to pull from my own heartache in different places in my life to get to that place. So I have the information about what happened to him, and I know what the scene's supposed to do, but how do I use that? And that was an interesting process of having to go, okay, I've got all the information, but now I have to pull from my own pain a little bit to get to the place to where we need to get to for the show. So those were the moments that I know I should know that. It should seem kind of, just, of course you would do that. But it did. Once we started working, I was like, oh, that's where I got to go to get to here. And that's kind of what I learned. Also, it's really about trusting. When you're in a show like this, you really have to trust your acting partner. And I have some amazing acting partners in this show. The 4 ladies, Khalifa and Taria and Jenny and Brennan, and then also Gavin, who plays King Joe Oliver. I have to have a moment with him. And then Lincoln Perry, DeWitt Fleming, I have to have a moment with him. So these acting partners that I have, I really have to trust that they also are doing their due diligence too, so we can go to those places that's a little hard to go to.
I'm always so interested in the mental juggling act that theater actors have to do, because you describe this process and how complex it sounds. But you're also at a certain point having to then also think about Spamalot as well. So I just want to sort of start by asking, like, how do you separate these things? You know what I mean? Like, how do you focus on one thing, focus on this other thing, and keep them separate, keep them together? Where does that all live in your head?
It's kind of fun. I kind of look at it as, when you have 2 pages up on your computer, one says one thing, one says the other. That's kind of how I have to separate it in my head of like, this is Louis, this is the emotional place I have to go for Louis, and this is Spamalot, and this is when I have to kick in, to my fun, silly side. And the fun part is the fun, silly side is always there because that's what keeps me as James Monroe Iglehart going. What makes me keep getting up in the morning is I love to laugh and I love to smile or to be happy. That's just me. So that side also influences Louis, because Louis was also, an entertainer, a jokester. He couldn't help himself. So what happens when it's time to go to King Arthur, I just let my silly side come more out and go, okay, over here. And also I take time in the day. One day is for Louis, part of the day is for Louis Armstrong, and I concentrate on that. I read his books, I go that. And the other day, I kind of have to shut that down and then go to Spamalot, get my script out, go to it, watch the movie, watch the clip from our show, from rehearsals to know what's going on, and stay within that world, in my mental world, and know where that break is and go, okay, this can't slip into this and this over here. And also it's kind of easy because the shows are so different. They're not going to flip into. My friends keep saying, "Are you going to walk on stage and talk like King Arthur, or are you going to walk in Spamalot and start talking like Louis?" I was like, "Nah, you don't have to worry about that. They're definitely separate." But I do take time in my day to work on both projects so that I can do them equally and do them both justice. Yeah.
What has the rehearsal process been like for Spamalot? Is it helped a little bit by the fact that you had recently done the show?
Oh my gosh, yes. I don't think I would have been able to do it if I hadn't already done it. Mm-hmm. Because what's happening is I fly in on a Sunday, and then Monday morning I'm there all day, and then I'm there for 2 hours on Tuesday before I fly back to Chicago to do the show that night. So I am there. My cast is so full of patience and so full of grace and so full of wonderful love to allow me to have this crazy schedule. So it's for me not to be there all the time. And I have a wonderful stand-in who's just a great guy, and he stands in for me. And he's the guy who'll be the other side when I'm not around, and so he's doing it while I'm not there. They send in tapes to me, and we go from there. I'm
interested in the fact that you have just done the show, but you've talked so eloquently about how working with your castmates and the people you're in the show with sort of informs the performance. So I'm curious, what it's like to do Spamalot with a different company, do another show, and then do the same show but with different people. How does that sort of change what you're giving, what you're taking, what you're sort of how does that change the role when the role is the same but the people are different?
That's that first moment of you get into the room and you call people. Or I when I found out who was going to be playing Patsy, the first thing I did was call Christopher Fitzgerald and say, "Hey, let's talk." Let's since we're so close, let's talk about what we think will be fun. What do you like to do? What do you so we make sure that we are on the same page with what's going on. And then we get into the room and we just start playing. The fun part with a show like that is it's really about the play of it. Let's just go for it. Let's read the script, see what's funny, and then just start throwing out ideas and see what works with us, what clicks. And the great thing is for me, because the way King Arthur is written, it's just pretty much kind of like me and Patsy on our own adventure, going to these different spots and seeing these different people. And some of the people I've in the show I've worked with before, and there's only really one new person that we really have, and that's Taryn Killingham, and he's fantastic. But I've known Taryn for a while, so the fact that we get to work together after all this time is great. But we're not the best of friends, but he's a great guy. I love the guy. But I've known him enough to go, I trust you, and I think we're going to have a great time. So we got to the room. I looked at him and I said, "Hey, where do you want to go?" He said, where do you want to go? I said, well, let's see what happens and see where we get to. And it's been fun ever since, you know. And that's when you need a director who is able to wrangle all of those crazy personalities and all of those comic geniuses into, you know, it's like herding cats. Because if you give us an inch, we're not going to be doing Spamalot. We are doing a completely improvised show that is still funny, but not the show we're supposed to be doing.
There has to be some structure, something.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Josh Ray, he goes, okay, guys, come back, and he riles us all together, puts us together. So that's kind of how it works. It's being there in rehearsals. We really kind of do buckle down and go, okay, what's up? Because we don't have a lot of time because I am gone. So it really is about, okay, let's focus on here. What are you going to do? You like that? Okay, let's try something different. And we try it a couple different ways, and we find something we like. Then we move on to the next, and when we come back to that scene, this is what we did before, but maybe we can expand on that. So we really do. It's kind of like really, really concentrated rehearsals because I'm not there as often as I could be.
So at this, I think, well, the day we're recording this, previews are starting in about a week or so, 10 days or so. I'm curious where you like to be, you know, at this point. Like, what is the goal heading into previews, and how does that sort of evolve as you get through previews to opening night? You know, what is the preferred jumps for you?
I think when we get to previews is just about getting the show will be up and ready to go because they will have gone through run-throughs. But previews are there so we can see what works and what doesn't. And we will get our rhythm. And so by the time we get to opening November 16th, our rhythm will be right as where it needs to be. You know, our first few will probably be frantic. It'll be funny, but frantic. And then as we relax into it, we're like, oh, so we can feel where the rhythm is. We feel where the ebb and flow is. We feel where this is going to work and this is not going to work. And then I know if this person he's on his A game today, or he's on his B game today, or he's giving a C show. In Broadway, you know, I always say you have to have an A show, a B show, and a C show. That A show is the one you do for the critics, and everybody's coming and you're going for all the glory. And the B show is the one you do when you're a little tired. You're like, oh, I can't really hit that note today. So I have a good note. That's going to impress everybody. And that C show is, I think I have a cold, but it's not COVID, and I still have to come to work. So what am I going to do to make this work?
Make it to the end.
Just to make it to the end of the show and still be entertaining and people not realize I'm giving a C show. You know what I mean? So we'll find our rhythms and where our A's, our B's, our C's are, and where, you know, when someone's an A and someone's an C, how can we lift them up so it looks like they're a B? You know, that's what previews are for, to go through that. And also just to realize I think we know we've got what we're doing. You know, it's different when you're doing it in rehearsals without the costumes or anything like that. When you're in previews, everything is there. I know where my light is. I know where the set's going to be. I know where my props are. Everything is there. And so that's just to get you in the rhythm. So when we open, we're just smooth sailing. We know what we're doing now.
Do you have any sort of, you know, a lot of people listen to this. I'm sure they recognize that C show. It's a day where they know they have to do something. Do you have any tips, tricks, you know, to get there to a place like you mentioned where it might feel to you like it is one of your down shows, but the audience is just they would never notice. Like is there anything you do to get to that point?
Yeah, unless I am so sick or I'm so hurt or dead, don't come to work. If you're going to come to work, give the best you have. And I will say that a lot of the people that work on Broadway are the elite of when it comes to theater working. So I hope this doesn't sound bad and people come at me crazy, but sometimes your 70% is some people's 100. So if you got 70, give the best 70 you possibly can. Give the best 80 you possibly can. You know what I mean? I probably shouldn't say 70. 70, you probably should not go to work. But if you have, you know, 75, 80, come to work and do your thing. You know what I mean? You're 90, of course. You're 100, great. But you also have to find it in rehearsals. Like in rehearsals, I found, okay, what happens if I mark in rehearsals what does it sound like? Oh, that still sounds good. Okay, that means I could use that in the show, and the show will still sound great. And what's my A show? That's my top note. That's my highest energy. That I know I can do that. Great, I can do that. What's my B show? Where's that moment where the note is where it needs to be? It's going to be quite impressive, but you know, it gets to show where it needs to be. But what is that? What's my base show? What will just get me through the show and will work? And you kind of have to practice that. You kind of have to find it. That place where you go, oh, I can do these things and the show is still funny, show is still good, the show will still work and the audience will still be entertained. Where is that? Because right there, that's my base. And then from there, build on that to find your bestest. You know what I mean? That's kind of how I do it. I hope that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. And I was actually going to ask sort of something similar. That's just like when something surprises you either during rehearsals or during the show that you know is working, you know, it's like, oh, that's something that I'm going to keep. Is there like an internal like a way to recognize it, you know, besides the obvious, besides being like, well, that's not going to work because it just like fell completely flat. Like, is there something in your head that you're like, oh, that I should keep that for the next one?
Yeah. Like sometimes I'll get a feeling and I'll go, oh, that was cool. What did I do? And then I'll try to recreate it again. And if I catch it, I'm like, okay, that's it. Or I'll write it down and go, okay, that was good. That works. Or I'll go to whoever I'm acting with and go, did you feel that? Like, yeah, we did. What did we do? I don't know. Let's try that one more time. And then we do it again and we do it. And we kind of practice so that we know where that part is. There's always a moment where I remember we were doing Spamalot reading and I said something silly and it made Nick Walker laugh so much. And the next time I did it, he joined in. And I looked at him and I was like, keep that. That's it. And then we just built on that. You know, we just built on that. And the same thing in Louis Armstrong. I've done some things where a friend of mine will approach me and go, I don't know what you did, but that was funny that night. And I was like, great. What was it? And I was like, okay, we'll figure it out. And so I went back and they were like, that was it. And so I was like, I'll feel it and go, that's it. So there are many times where I'll either write it down or whoever I'm acting with, I'll ask them, you know, was that good for you? Did that work? Because it really worked for me. And then we kind of like build on that moment.
I love that. So like I mentioned, you know, a lot of the people who listen to this podcast, they're actors themselves. And I try and get as much, you know, tangible, just here's some stuff you can do. On show days, you know, days where you have either, you know, 2 shows a day, you know, you're going to have to put on a performance that night. Is there anything, you know, that you do that is like physical or mental?
Okay, so I'm doing 2 shows. So this is kind of fun because they're both very different. With Louis, he is vocally taxing. So with Louis, I really have to be a hermit. And it was kind of that way with Jeannie too, but it was more on the physical side. Jeannie was very physical and I did all kinds of different voices and stuff, you know, going places. So it was really about, I couldn't hang with my homies. I couldn't kick it with my friends. You know, it was really about taking care of your body. So in the mornings for Louis, I wake up and I make sure that I steam. I make sure that I eat something that's not going to give me like acid reflux, nothing too spicy or anything like that. I want to make sure I drink lots and lots of water. And when I get to the theater, I try to stretch as much as I possibly can. I try to do my jumping jacks just to get my heart rate flowing, just to get it up. And I definitely warm up, you know, to the best, not too much because I know I have to use the gravel, but warm up enough for my voice is ready where it needs to be. And then I kind of just stay quiet until it's time for the show. Once I do the show, in between shows, then I warm down and then I kind of stay away from people. I literally go back to my hotel and take a nap just to allow my body to rest, to get ready for the next show. I get to my dressing room, I do my jumping jacks again, maybe do a push-up or 2. Well, more than 2, that sounds really lazy. Do my jumping jacks, we go push-ups. I eat something light. I drink a lot of water and then get ready for the next show. And again, I will go out, I see the fans for a little bit, but I definitely let them know I have to go home. Now, with Spamalot, I like to watch silly things. You know, I like to watch Looney Tune cartoons, or I'll watch a Goofy cartoon, or watch something really, really funny to me to get myself in that mood. And then I will go to people's dressing rooms and joke with them and have a ball. I want to make sure I touch every person in the show. I go to Nick, I'll go to Taryn, I'm going to go to Chris, I'm going to go to everybody in the building to let them know, hey, I'm here. Are you here? So we can look eye to eye to get ready for this silliness we're about to do. And then again, you know, I do something physical. I do my jumping jacks, I do my push-ups, I just drink my water. And with that show, you know, I try not to eat too heavy, but you know, if I want to eat, you know, a spicy taco, I can for that show because I'm not going to be vocally killing myself. So, but with those things, it's a different mental process. You know, it's a different mental thing of where I need to get into for Spamalot as opposed to Louis. But with Louis, because of how taxing it is, I have to really just stay focused and stay quiet till I can do it. With Spamalot, it really is about the camaraderie and it really is about going around and playing with people and having fun. So when we get on stage, it's like recess. So we can do it, but that's That's my process. That's how I do it. Or I'll read something funny. I'm a big Darkwing Duck fan, and Darkwing Duck has a comic book, and it's really funny. I mean, I know you wouldn't think watching the cartoon is funny, but the comic gets away with so many things they couldn't get away with in the cartoon. And so I'll read that. It's funny to me. Or I'll read a Garfield. I'll go to the Garfield comic strips and just start cracking up laughing. Or I watch kitten videos of them doing stupid stuff just to get my mind in something funny, so that when I get out there, I'm in that mood,
I love that. That's all incredibly fascinating. And I again, like you mentioned, we could talk about theater for hours and hours, but as we wrap up here, I do want to ask just one more question to sort of put some kind of bow on this. And I when you think about, those early performances we mentioned, those breakout performances, everything that's come between the breakout with, Aladdin and stuff like that, and where you are now, 2 shows, where you are now as an actor, in what way have you sort of are you the same actor now as you were in the beginning?
Yes and no. I say yes, I'm the same actor because I'm the same kid who wanted to be liked, but now knows it's okay if I like myself. If I like myself, I'll be okay. And I'm the same actor who just loves being in front of people. I love being silly. I love making people laugh. And I love, just being stupid. I think it's fun. But I'm a different actor because now I'm more confident in the skills I have. Mm-hmm. I have a toolbox, not to break out and say this always works, but I have a toolbox that I've learned over the years of how to do stuff. And, I want to say I wish I had that as a kid, but you can't have that because you have to learn them. That's something you have to learn. You have to learn, oh, this works, this doesn't. Speaking like this loud doesn't help. Screaming does not help. How can I project without hurting myself? How can I, get on stage without, getting on stage cold? No, I have to stretch. I'm older now. I'm 49. I've got to stretch before I go on stage. I've got to get my heart rate pumping before I go on stage. I have to warm up and warm down before I get on or after I get off stage. So I have my tools. I know I have to drink a lot of water. I know I have to eat a certain way. I got to be on my game when it comes to that. So those are the differences. Those are the wisdom that I've learned over the years. But as far as being different, now I'm the same dreamer kid who saw Baloo the bear in Jungle Book and thought, I don't know what this is, but I want to do that. But when I saw the lion for the first time in The Wiz, and I said, I don't know what that is, but whatever that is, I want to do that. I want to be on that stage and listen to those people applaud. The first time I heard applause, I was like, that's been my drug since I was 5 years old. So that part hasn't changed. But what has changed is the maturity of knowing how to do it and how to do it healthily and still have fun with it. And also, the one thing that I have learned is that this is a job, but it's also fun. I mean, we get to play for a living. That's what we do. No disrespect to our profession. I love my profession. But we're not rocket scientists here. We're not curing cancer here. We're bringing world peace one show at a time, sure. But, we're not solving world peace here. We're actors and we're doing theater and we're entertaining. We are able to change people's minds, yes, through our stories, through our plays, through our movies, through even something silly as a commercial. We are able to change people's minds, but it's in a different way. It's subtle. A joke can change somebody's mind because they see a character and they see themselves in, or they see something that they recognize, but we're too afraid to say something, but they laugh at it in the theater. So they go, oh, maybe I don't think that way. So we are doing that. But I also don't want us to I also try not to take myself too seriously and think, oh my God, I am an actor and what I do changes the world. And man, come on. We do musical theater and that's what we do. So I still enjoy that simplicity of the entertainment and excitement of being that kid who saw a show and now I get to do it. You know what I mean? So that part hasn't changed. And I think if I keep that childlike excitement about the fact that I get paid to do recess for a living, I'm good.
I love that. Well, James, again, thank you so much for being here. This was an absolute pleasure. Pleasure to meet you. Pleasure to talk to you.
You too as well.
Yeah, A Wonderful World, Spamalot, whichever one you can get to it.
Thanks, Red.
Thanks, as always, to our brilliant producer, Jamie Muffett, and to the whole team at Backstage. Samantha Sherlock, Mark Stinson, Caitlin Watkins, and of course, Kasey Howe. Visit Backstage.com, and don't forget, you can subscribe to Backstage with code ENVELOPE at checkout for a free trial. 100% free. You simply cannot beat that. For more exclusive content, find us on Facebook and Twitter at In the Envelope, and subscribe, share, and leave a comment. Who should we interview next? Let us know. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time for another peek in the envelope.